Today's recommended series is the William Marshal series by Elizabeth Chadwick. So, historical fiction as a genre is kind of difficult, in my opinion, because there's so many different things that can go wrong. There are some authors who don't do a lot of first-hand research and kind of depend upon other people to have done their research for them, which is, one way to do it. Then there are those who kind of go down a deep dark hole and then kind of forget that they have to tell a story, and the narration part of it kind of evaporates. I'm thinking particularly of, say, Georgette Heyer, who used a historical fiction novel such as My Lord John or Royal Escape to sort of meticulously account for the lives of those people, but kind of seem to have forgotten all the things that made her writing enjoyable. Which is a real shame, because I think when people take themselves too seriously or their work too seriously, then the work actually suffers as a result. The best historical fiction, in my opinion, is when the author is able to achieve a happy marriage between meticulous research and great narration. And this is something that Elizabeth Chadwick always knocks out of the park. So if you are somebody who's dipping a toe in historical fiction, or if you're a long-time reader, then it's impossible not to have heard of Elizabeth Chadwick, because hers will be the first name that everybody recommends to you. And there's a reason for that. It's because she's really good. So the novel I'm going to be recommending today is called The Greatest Knight. And it is the story of William Marshal, one of the greatest knights, or maybe the greatest knight, as she says, of chivalry. So William Marshal is a real-life figure, and he served under Eleanor of Aquitaine. This is really one of my all-time favorite periods of British history, or English history to be more exact, just because Henry II and Eleanor of Aquitaine, they're both remarkable people in their own rights, and then together they have this really dysfunctional marriage and a famously dysfunctional family. And there was just so much drama all the time. It's insane. And William Marshal not only worked for them during this period, but he managed to go from a landless second son to, one of the richest men in the kingdom, and ultimately regent to young King Henry III. In fact, he was so famous and well respected that there was actually a biography of his that was printed, and I think that is one of the primary sources for Chadwick. Now, the way the series is structured is, again, it's just very loosely woven together. So if you read this book and you decide, that's it, I know all I need to know about William Marshal, then that's fine, because this is a sort of overview of his life. The other books in the series are sort of about people that we see in this book. So publication-wise, The Greatest Knight was the first book to be published, but chronologically, the first book is actually the story of his father. And then there's another story about his father-in-law, and then there's a story about his daughter, and there's, I think, about 5 different books set in the same universe, so to speak. One of the things that I really enjoy about this book is how it also shows the practical side of chivalry. So he's not just like singing in bowers and like jousting for fame, but he's a landless knight. He needs to make money. So within like the first chapter or so of the book, you kind of see him realize that about himself, that, however much he might ascribe to the code of chivalry, he also needs to remember that he needs to make his way in the world. I don't know, I thought that was like a really fun aspect of the book, because you don't really get to see that kind of like practical side of things. Like, everyone talks about how, he's so good with women and everyone loves him, but he's also thinking about how his elder brother needs to marry for money. Historians will generally agree that William Marshal perhaps wasn't exactly a saint, But and in Chadwick's case, you know, when she's writing about him, she doesn't try and make him sound better than he was. Like, there are blind spots, and he is a bit of an idiot sometimes. But Chadwick's greatest gift is narration, and she's able to layer all these complex bits and pieces of historical context and his actions. And I don't know, there's like an element of myth making about it, but not in an annoying way. Now, those of you who don't read historical fiction, like, if you don't like it, then you don't like it. I can't convince you otherwise. But there are people who've come up to me and said, oh, I really want to read historical fiction, but I'm not sure if it's for me because I don't always understand what the terms mean or what they're talking about. And I feel that the Game of Thrones, like the series, not even the books, but the series has really challenged that perception, because if you could follow along with just the series, then you can do very well with books of this sort. Occasionally you will come across a term for things that, you know, items of dress or animals or the food that they ate or customs, and you might not know what those things mean necessarily, but the context gives you plenty of clues, and the trick is not to get too caught up. You just need to flow with the story, and then you can go back and Google what those words mean. It's not hard. I would never recommend something that was too hard. Okay, I'm a liar, but I'm not lying about this one. I will say, however, that the quality of the books in the series sort of varies, because there are some stories that are better than the others. So my strong recommendation is that you don't read the books like in a chronological order. So don't start with his father's story, for example. Start with The Greatest Night, and then see if you enjoy that. And then if you do, then you can basically sort of hopscotch. Like, there's no particular order in which these books ought to be read. They're just a fun read, and I really like them. For more videos, please hit the subscribe button.